They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight I am so stoked to be able to hang out with a true badass and warrior who we are all lucky to have alongside us on this path as he's confronted the darkness and foes in so many effective, irreverent, and truly enjoyable ways, which we all need more of. With one slammin' book known to be the most dangerous book ever written, The Octopus of Global Control, and another bestseller so dangerous they had to immediately publish a ripoff decoy to try to stop it, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. And if that weren't enough, he also hosts a show that never fails to unmask the devious devils that devour our souls right in front of our crying eyes. Macroagressions with Charlie Robinson and Union of the Unwanted. He is the man of the hour. Charlie, welcome to Rogue Ways.
Can I just say that was a Greg Carlwood-esque intro, and I've never been more like embarrassed and
praised,
humbled and happy and all of those things all at once. That was just amazing.
Aww.
Thank you for that intro. I hope I don't shit the bed after that.
That's awesome. No, you deserve that and more, and it's definitely Greg Carlwood was the inspiration, so that is very nice to hear as well. It is just so good to have you here, because I don't know if people know, but we did a sort of swap cast before, but I was an asshole and had not come prepared at all, and so it really just was like you leading the show and me being there along for the ride. So I'm very glad to have you here as I can lead you through the ride. And
you drive. I'm ready to. I'll navigate. You drive. Let's get on this journey towards the weirdness and the insanity that we seem to be confronted with daily.
Can't get rid of it. It's just more. It's like we're on a hyper speed warp drive through like the clown show. It's so bizarre living in 2021.
Doesn't it feel like everything is like on an accelerated pace? Like they got like whatever the big meeting is, that they're going to at the big club that we're not in. You feel like they just said, just throw whatever you can at the wall, man. I don't care if you got to give out fucking lottery tickets.
Yeah.
Get them vaccinated. And Gavin Newsom's like, lottery tickets? Okay, yes. Oh, hey, let's have them do laps around Talladega Speedway. Oh, good. Yeah, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Anything goes. And our reward for living through this insane year is we have to deal with everybody who can't see how insane it is. And I think that might be the most dangerous component of this entire mix.
It's definitely the weirdest and the most awe-inspiring, is that there could be anybody left who isn't going, wait, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, is this for real? You're gonna give me a donut, a lottery ticket, and like I can't even remember half the rewards that people are offered for getting this experimental medication. It's still experimental.
Personally, I'm holding out for donut and coffee for the entire year.
Yeah,
because
come on.
I have standards.
Yeah, give me a chicken dinner. Come on.
Right.
Well, I always like to do a pointless question of the episode to begin, and before we get to that, I want to remind everyone you have like 3 or 4 or 5 days left before this Saturday is the One Day of Brightness event, so get your ticket now before you run out of time. It's going to be an amazing event. It's virtual, it's on Zoom, so anybody anywhere in the world can come. We always have the most uplifting, refreshing, rejuvenating time and get really, really deep. It's beautiful. And the pointless question of the episode, Charlie, is what's it like sharing a name with Night Court's famous character court clerk Mac?
Yeah, well, it's a struggle, to be honest.
Really.
To have the most famous guy with my name be an old black guy was disappointing for me, to be honest with you. I felt like maybe I could maybe profit off of his name, or somehow maybe like check into a hotel and maybe pass myself off as being this guy, but that was never going to happen with him.
Never gonna be that cool.
No, and I can't even get that name. If I get my SAG card, I'd have to change my name to something else too.
Yeah.
What a pain in the butt. But I did like Night Court though.
I
So
know, it's
there's
such a
that.
good show.
Yeah.
I'm just glad you know what I'm talking about, because I think a lot of people are
Exactly
like,
what
what,
you're
Night
talking
Court? What is that?
Yeah, I know Night Court, and I know that. Well, you know what? Now my name gets confused. The Robinson, people take the N out of that, and I'm a country music singer,
Oh.
which is equally weird.
Yes,
Just
which maybe
different,
you could
kind of.
pass for more easily, but maybe not as much
Yeah,
fun.
probably. If I put like the Kenny Chesney hat on and acted, and got a little twangy. I did spend many summers in Knoxville, Tennessee, so I feel like I'm sort of like a quarter redneck.
You're a quarter country. You got the
Yeah, a little
vibe
bit.
down.
Yeah, grandparents from there, spent a lot of time there. I can actually appreciate the mentality of the Southern people. There's questions too,
Yeah.
but there's also part of me that respects their commitment to not giving a shit about a variety of things that we probably shouldn't give a shit about, and so I respect the South.
That's a really good point, and we were talking about snakes right before we started, and I'm just remembering this picture I saw of this woman, like, in the South, on, like, a river, sort of sunbathing, and then this giant, what looks like an anaconda, as far as I know, just, like, slithers out of the river, and she just, like, is watching it, and it starts coming towards her, and she just, like, stands up and casually scoops it up and throws it back in the river, and then just sits back down and starts drinking her beer. I'm like, I don't know if anyone could ever be that badass again. Like, that was pretty baller. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's my snake encounter, as we were just talking about. I came out a couple days ago, a different situation, and there was a huge one right in my driveway, and of course I started grabbing its tail. I was gonna remove it, and it started hissing at me, and my mom was with me, and she was like, oh my god. I said, yeah, you do remember when I was a kid I had like a million of these things, right? She's like, yes, and they scared me every time.
So tell us about your childhood snakes. Like, why were you drawn to snakes? I also had snakes as a child, but I thought I was weird.
When I was like in the 3rd or 4th grade, I saw this, like the movies they would put on, like the big film reels they would put on when your teacher was hungover or
Yes.
didn't want to talk to you. They put on one that was called A Boy and His Boa, and it was like straight out of the 70s, and I remember watching that going, wow. And he had like this bowling bag, and he had this snake in it, and he was like, the kid was like a little bit older than me, and I was like, I want to get a snake for
Like,
sure.
this is me. This is so
And
who I am.
then I wound up getting some, and then just always enjoyed them. Not a big fan of spiders.
No.
Definitely like snakes though, so
They're cute. I don't know if you ever had this
They're cute.
happen where you went to feed your snake. I don't know if you did live food or not, but I went to feed my snake and he just didn't eat it ever. So there was just a mouse living with him, and they would like cuddle up together, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is so
Yeah,
weird.
I had a ball python that didn't eat for 18 months, and I would talk to the people at the pet store and everything, and I would look up research, and they'd say, yeah, sometimes they just don't eat. And I with those mice, I just said, well, you win.
Yeah.
And I just what am I gonna do?
Right. I named one of mine Big Bubba the Survivor. My mom was not happy. She's like, so now we're gonna just start collecting mice too. Like, this is
Yes,
not.
so.
This is...
This one decides to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your childhood? What is it? Was it a good childhood? Were you a normal kid, or were you weirdo, or what was it like?
I think I was normal, whatever normal is these days. I
True.
mean, I liked, Little League and soccer and video games, and I was, I was born in 72. So like, I was like late 70s, all through the 80s, like all that seat belts optional, no helmets, during summer, you go out, play outside with your friends and just forget to eat for like the day. And, I was busy and active. I went
Real
to a
life.
little
It was real
little
life.
tiny school. I I felt relatively normal. My dad died when I was 16, so I guess that technically is childhood, but so and that obviously has a impact on people. But I think all things considered, I had a very amazing and fortunate childhood.
Oh, that's good. So how did you get to become who you are then? How did you get to be with us weirdos over here on the questioning side of society? Did it
Yeah,
take a while?
I'll tell you how. I mean, I always had questions about, let's just say, like from 9/11 on. Maybe not on the day of 9/11, but a little bit after it, I had questions about it. I wasn't really sure. I saw some videos. I watched some documentaries and things like that, and I was interested in all of that. But it wasn't until 2007 when things really kind of broke open for me, and it was because I read John Perkins' book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And at the time I read it, I was living in Las Vegas and selling new homes. So we were selling homes to people that by all accounts shouldn't be in a position to be borrowing that sort of money to buy a home. It was going to end badly for them, and the market was accelerating at a natural pace. And I'm reading John Perkins' book about how the IMF and World Bank use debt as a weapon, and I was like, God damn, they're doing this on a big scale. And they were getting countries into binds where they would loan them money to build power plants, and they would fall behind on their payments. And then it was designed for them to fall behind on their payments. And then they would start extracting something from them. And I was like, holy shit, this is so diabolical. And then everything collapsed. And I knew these people were behind it. I knew that it was made to, if it wasn't like that they turned on the key, they certainly did leave the keys in the ignition for you to find it. And then, so they set up the system for it to break, and then it blew up. And I hurt, like the people I sold homes to, they lost their homes. I lost my homes. I bought a house I lived in. I kept one and moved into a bigger house and kept the first one as a rental property. Those are gone. So I got hurt from it too, because I didn't understand the game. And so at that point, I decided that they're playing a rigged game, and I want to figure out how it works. So I'm not like right in the middle of another one of these things. Yeah. I'd made some money and lost it all in the .com stock bubble. It was like I was the sucker that was playing 3-card Monte and going, how come I keep losing? And I recognized that, and it's an embarrassing, awful feeling that also cost you a lot of money and sets you back financially like a decade every time it happens, Yeah. And you start to say, all right, well, I just want to understand this better. And so once I dug into like trying to understand money, and then the dollar, and what the Fed is, and how that works, and where these mortgages go. I mean, I knew this. I worked in real estate and still do, but the idea, of where mortgages are, where they come from and where they go once you take one out and it goes to Wall Street and it gets thrown into these mortgage-backed security. I just wanted to know. I just needed to know how it all works. So that set me down the path. And then what happened was just a sort of a normal conversation with my mom one day when she'd come over to my place, and I was telling her, I was going on and on about some new conspiracy I just found out about, and she's like, this is great. Nice that you have all this and you've got all this information about all these things. What are you planning on doing with it? And I didn't have an answer. Yeah. I didn't know. It never crossed my mind.
It's a great question.
Frankly. I just thought I liked it. I was interested in it. I wanted to know more about it. And what she was saying was, well, you've done all those things, but she was saying, like, you're explaining it to me in a way that makes sense to me. Maybe you could explain it to other people. And I thought, okay, I can maybe do that. So I quietly, like, as in didn't tell anybody, started writing the Octopus book. And, and I didn't know if I was going to finish it. You never know with this stuff. I'm not a journalist. I didn't do any of that, so I don't have necessarily the background. So you don't know if you're any good at it, and you don't know if it's going to make sense or whatever. So I just to spare myself the humiliation, I didn't tell anyone. And as I wrote and got to be a bigger and bigger thing, then I continued to not tell anyone, not because I didn't think I was going to finish it, but because I didn't want somebody to tell me to stop. And like, someone say, well, there's got to be better uses of your time than writing this stupid book. Who's going to read it? How, all the things that people can say to you. So I didn't tell anyone.
Wow.
And then it just showed up in a big box, the first batch came in from the publisher, and it was like, my wife was there. I wasn't there to intercept it. She opened up the box and found all these books.
She was like, what is
with
this?
my face on it, and she threw me out of the house for 2 days for emotionally cheating on her.
Oh, she's like, how could you not tell me the secret
I know.
life?
I mean, let's also be honest. I mean, if we want to make a list of the things that I could have been doing behind her back, writing a book is not the worst thing.
Yeah.
So
that's why it was only 2 days. She's like, actually,
right, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
That's right. That's why it was 2 days. So after sort of the initial shock of that, it just became one of these things where I felt, I feel like if I have this information, or an understanding about how these things work, and it's not to say that I know it all or that I've got it all figured out or anything like that. But if I have this information and I don't let people know, then I felt like it was kind of shitty on me, to not do that, to sort of like be like, oh, well, I've known this for years. You dummies didn't know. Oh, too bad for you. So it was kind of like a little bit of an obligation too. More than anything, I was interested in doing it to see how it would all work. But then I also, there was part of me felt like I sort of had to do it. And that'll keep you going over the time it takes you to write, because there's times when you're just like, ugh, well, who is going to read this?
Yeah.
How, is
Why
anyone
am I
even
doing
going to
this?
get to this page? Are they going to give up long before? So that's how I got into this alternative media sort of world. But the thing is that I had been watching this stuff and reading the books of all these people that I, for a long time, Graham Hancock and David Ikes and these guys, and then to like be in this situation where I'm selling books as well, and then meet these guys blew my mind, because I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if it wasn't for them. So it's been a trip, it's been an educational sort of voyage, because there's always something else you learn. These people are so devious. There's some new thing that you've never heard of that's twice as bad as what you thought the worst thing was, and you get to it and you're like, oh, again with these people. But so until we've solved all these problems and the world can go back to normal, whatever that is, I feel like I'm going to continue to try to talk about it, because it just seems like it's the most important thing to be doing these days.
Yeah, when you see the whole world is suffering and has been suffering for who knows how long, it's definitely, what else could be more important than that? So it's definitely a noble goal. And it's so cool, that you've been able to do all of this. And I just even love that image of the Octopus of Global Control, because it so perfectly, shows exactly they have their tentacles and everything. There's not anything they haven't thought of. Oh, you did?
Yeah. So the logo for the book, the octopus logo, I changed the colors on it, but it's from the National Reconnaissance Office, NROL-39, that mission of the satellites they sent up. And there's a big sticker on the side of it with that big octopus. And in my book, it says the Octopus of Global Control, but on their sticker on their spy satellite, it says nothing is beyond our reach.
God.
Well, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, truth is stranger than fiction. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, actually, Jon Stewart did a bit on it back in the Daily Show. So when people reverse image search for that, it'll pull up this clip from Jon Stewart going, "Look at these fuckers! They're putting it on the satellite." You know, he's got like an image of it behind him and everything, and he's screaming about it. So it's, but the symbology of the octopus was not mine. It's been around for a long time. In fact, one of the main quotes that's in the book, and the format of the book, for those that don't know, is that I brought in quotes from over 500 different people that had either a role in the most important events, or they had some sort of interesting take on these important events. So you get like a lot of Rockefellers and Rothschilds and Clintons and Bushes and Bill Hicks and George Carlin and Rogan and guys like, you get a little bit of everything. But there's one quote in there that's from this guy, John Francis Hyland, and he's the mayor of New York City in 1922. So we're like almost 100 years ago. And he's talking about this octopus with its sprawling tentacles that has infected the political system, the judicial, the banking. And he says, to escape from mere generalities, I'm talking about the Rockefeller Standard Oil interests. And so I put that quote in there because it's just great. But there's more. There's Danny Castellero's book, The Octopus. There's been people talking about it for a long time. So by no means was it like my idea, but when you see like an octopus, it is such a I mean, the reason why they use it is just perfect, because 8 tentacles, but it's also such a smart animal.
True.
It's got a hidden beak, that you don't know until you get close, and then it can spray ink and then disappear and live to fight another day, or it can camouflage itself, it can change textures, it's an amazing creature. And it's in the parallels between these creatures that are running our world very similar. Sometimes they'll camouflage themselves if it's in their best interest to do it, but if they need to, you'll see the beak. So it to me, it kind of just all worked.
Yeah.
And also I could split the book up into 8 sections with each of the tentacles, and so it makes it, even though it's a thick book, it makes it a much easier read between that and the quotes and everything. So I've had people say, I'm not a big book reader, or I don't read, or I get intimidated by big books, but I actually found your book to be really fast to read because of that. And the number one positive comment that I've got on my book, and I've gotten so many of it, but it's the number one, is that thank you for using bullet points in it. I was like, okay,
that's
I'll
awesome.
take it.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to say, you thought so deeply about this one subject. It's like, no, it's none of that. It's thanks for bullet points because it's easier for me to read. I was like, all right.
Well, whatever people think of George Orwell, I really appreciate his ideas, and he has an essay called Politics in the English Language. And one of the tenets of this, one of the main ideas, is that you should never take more words to say something than you have to. Basically, speak simply. If you can't just say it, don't say it. Or like, why are you wasting time? Why are you adding all this fluff? Like, we just want to know what you mean. And Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, says similar things. He's like, if you can't explain your idea to a child, then you don't understand your idea. So I like making it simple like that. That's a beautiful thing. It's something that many people can't do. It's a skill, but it's also it's necessary. We want to be able to understand and maybe kind of quickly too. So I appreciate it too. Good job.
Cool. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say, but in the end, if you can try and cut it down, I'm working on book number 3 right now, and that one's going to be about half, well, a little bit more than half the size of the octopus, which I think is probably going to be good. But I've got bullet points in it
so
because I get the feedback, and I know what the people have spoken, and they demand bullet points.
It's true, especially when it's nonfiction like this, because there's another thing that I think I really love when people do, which is to summarize at the end again what the sort of overall idea of the whole chapter is, where we've been, right? It's a good, you've read through the whole chapter, and then you're kind of like, wow, that was a lot, but where were we? Oh yeah, we're here. Okay, cool.
Right.
There's reasons for these things. Well, I also like the octopus because the octopus can like ditch a leg, right? You're like, a shark's attacking them, they're like, fine, take this leg, like, we'll regrow it back.
Yeah.
It's cool. And I feel like this is another thing that the psychopath class does. And I wonder what you think about like Bill Gates and Bezos and these people kind of getting like thrown under the bus. Is that one of these like ditch a leg thing, or is there something else going on?
That's exactly what it is. What a great metaphor. They are they are the lizard people that are losing their tails and then they grow them back. So yeah, a guy like Bill Gates and Fauci. What's fascinating to me is that um, these guys were worshipped
Yeah.
over the last year. I mean,
Right.
that you couldn't say anything negative about them without people thinking that you were just a despicable human being, because these are the brave people that are saving the world. And and but if you read the SPARS document, the SPARS pandemic document that came out in 2017 that simulated a fake outbreak and what this might look like, and this marriage between the pharmaceutical industry and the media in trying to come together as one and deliver a cohesive message about what to do in the event of this pandemic document, they have a character that's a Fauci, like a celebrity doctor who's paraded in front of the media constantly. And in this scenario, things are going exactly the way they're going now. They get to the point where they start rushing out the vaccines with the same sort of protections and stipulations and everything. But then in the fictional document, which we haven't, to be fair, we haven't gotten there yet in our real document, in our real life. We're a couple of months away from it. But in this fictional scenario, the vaccine starts to give all the people mad cow disease.
Yes.
And then the doctors, the celebrity doctors and the celebrities that pushed it, and the head of the CDC and the head of the FDA and all these people, they're all run out of town. They don't say if they're prosecuted. They don't say but they're just totally shunned by society and everything. And so it's interesting to me to know this document. It's 89 pages. It's available where it's still available at Johns Hopkins Medical Center, one of the websites.
Yeah.
You can pull it down from there and read it. But in that so it's kind of happening a little bit out of order, according to the thing, because normally in their scenario the vaccine hits and it's a disaster, and then the people react and then they throw these people out. But in our current situation, we've got the rush to market vaccine. We've got side effects, but not on the overwhelming scale that this document simulates. And yet we're already at the throw these guys out of here stage.
Yeah.
In real life, which is funny. So I don't know. They can, maybe they're just being flexible. Maybe hopefully nothing bad happens, because in the fake scenario, it's bad. Like 9 months after the vaccines roll out, after people start taking them, it's real bad. It's so bad that it is undeniably bad. And nobody is fooled by, it might just be a new strain, or it might just be the common flu coming.
Yeah.
In their document, the people revolt. And so I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you, because on the one hand, I don't want the document to be true, because it means pain for everybody that took it. Now, I'm not going to be taking it, so but I don't want bad things to happen to them. I don't want to be right so badly that I want them to dead, or
way rather be wrong.
Lunch break,
right?
But so I don't want it to happen. But I'll be damned if there's so many similarities in it from the way it was rolled. From the way it was rolled out, it's almost identical.
Yeah.
The emergency use authorization and all that stuff. So that's it's funny to see Fauci's and Gates being discarded, or being shown to be disposable. Possibly they're still using them. They just Bill Gates just doesn't have that sort of just blanket love that he had before all of this. I mean, we in the alternative media have been screaming about this maniac for a decade at least. We know exactly who he is and what he's up to, but the vast majority of people just think he's a philanthropist. And it reminds me of you know, he's got his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and whenever they start talking about philanthropists, it reminds me of this episode from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know if you watched that, but he one of the guys is on a date with a girl. He's a blind date, and he doesn't know what to say because it's Charlie, the guy, you know, the guy who's with the strings and the meme and everything. And he doesn't know what to say. He's not very good with words, and he doesn't know what to tell her. So his buddy is at the table, like 2 tables down, and he's going to help him out. And so when the girl goes to the bathroom, he runs over and says, listen, tell her you're a philanthropist. Okay. Chicks like that. And so he runs back into his table and he hides. And so when the girl sits down, she goes, what do you do? He says, I'm a full-on rapist.
Yeah.
You know, and I keep thinking, whenever these guys, I hear like Bill Gates and Epstein, and they're called the philanthropist, I just immediately go to that scene because the line is so thin between philanthropist and full-on rapist that it's something to keep your eyes on. You know, I mean, it's almost like it's a cover story for your psychopathy.
Yeah,
you know?
For real. I know, and once you start looking at him, it's really, really hard not to see just how horrifying his entire everything. You're like, that meme where it's like, so how evil are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And he's like, I want to block out the sun. That goes way far beyond 10. Like, that's pretty bad, actually. Yeah.
It's like, he's like Guru, you know, like from like Despicable Me, you know, I mean, he's like those villains that are like in the cartoon kids movies, they're trying to block out the sun, and you're like, ha ha ha, and there's like, no, wait, there's a guy that lives on this earth in real life that wants to do that, and what's crazy is he has the money to do it, and he's probably going to try. We should maybe keep an eye on that guy who's buying all the farmland and wants you to eat fake meat, and has the seed vault in Norway. He spent the money to build that in Svalbard, Norway.
I didn't know he funded that.
Yeah, well, he had 2 partners. Would you like to know who they are?
Jeffrey
the Rockefeller Foundation. No, he had 3 partners. The Rockefeller Foundation, Monsanto, and Syngenta.
Oh, wow. What a combo.
Great. What could possibly go wrong there? So they built he put $30 million in for it. They built this 1,100 miles south of the North Pole. It's in Norway on an island. And you got to go 400 feet up a cliff and then 300 feet into the cliff. And that's where they built this seed vault that holds all the real seeds for the world. There's several million different types that they have there. And it's a several 100,000 square foot facility that has all of this. And
but they're not Terminator seeds, you know?
No,
yeah.
No. These are the actual nature seeds. So it's like when people are saying, well, Bill Gates is a philanthropist. I go, I have to piece together his investment portfolio. And it's like, he's the guy that owns the real seeds, but he's also the largest single shareholder of Monsanto, who makes the fake seeds. And now he's buying all the land, and he wants you to eat fake meat, and he wants to block out the sun. God. And he's Jeffrey Epstein's buddy. You know, like, this is not exactly the sort of picture that you're like, oh, he's super rich. Great.
Yeah.
He's also super evil.
He's insane.
Did you know that? You know, so I think that I get little bits of hope when I start to see things like the mainstream media, who I fucking despise. Let me be crystal clear. Even a little bit turning on these guys. It makes me, because I know that then some of the normies are waking up to like the fact that the mainstream media had to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. It was such a big story that they had to talk about it. It was actually a good thing. Sure. Because it woke up normies to the fact that these guys exist. And of course, we're writing about these people. I mean, I wrote about brownstone operations in the Octopus book, and because of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, he was running one in broad daylight. So, like, at least after we go through all this, at least the nice thing is that there's a segment of the population that is now living in a world in which Jeffrey Epsteins exist, and they're starting to see that Bill Gates is not a really good guy. Okay, good. It's like, good. let's keep going with this. We're getting warmer. Let's talk about George Soros. Let's talk about there's a lot of people that we can have this conversation about. So I'm trying really hard to be optimistic about some components of this. I'm having a hard time doing it, but the best I can get is that at least it's waking people up to the idea that there are these really nefarious people that have super cozy relationships with a bunch of people whose names you recognize that are on TV as actors or politicians or whatever. And they're all friends with some of these guys. So like, welcome to our hell where we've known this for a while and we get obsessed with trying to make people aware of it. It's like now it's kind of been forced on some people, which, it to me is like the first step, because you never know what's going to take you down the rabbit hole all the way. It might be the Jeffrey Epstein thing. You go, I never knew about that. Or it might be like a couple years from now when people start going, that whole COVID thing was just a bunch of horse shit. And you go, yeah. And then they think, well, what else is horse shit? And then it takes you down the rabbit hole. So like any of these botched operations or really sloppy media cover-up jobs, they work in our favor. I mean, the more of these, the better, because it wakes up a few more people to the idea that some of these things are lies. And I don't know. I'm sure you probably feel the same way I do. I think a lot of people do, which is like, once you wake up to some of this, you can never like unknow it. You can never like pretend like it's not there. You kind of just feel like your world from this point on involves knowing that this shit exists. And it could be a bit depressing, and I can understand why people want to distance themselves from this at times because it's heavy, but it's like, I'd rather have all the information and then decide how I want to deal with it than not have a full amount, not know what's actually going on. So I come from that sort of line of thinking where I just kind of want to have as much information and then I'll sift through it. But I recognize that there's a certain segment of the population that wants zero information. They don't want to know anything. Like that lady, the vaccine lady that was at the PR stunt with Cuomo, where she's going, I don't care what's in the vaccine. I don't want to know what's in the vaccine. Just put it in my arm. Put it in my arm. She was doing this whole thing. And
didn't she die?
Like, I mean,
maybe I'm thinking of a different person. I don't know.
No, I mean, she didn't die. She just was so proud of her ignorance. It was like fascinating and insulting and frustrating and like, it was like people of Walmart type of, when you're like, holy shit, these people they live, they're actually real, and so, it's, so we also live in a world where that lady exists, where she doesn't want to know any information. No. And that to me is, frankly, that might be the most dangerous component of all of this. The people that are content in their ignorance and just have just said, I'm outsourcing. Thinking's tough. Figuring all this stuff out is tough. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a political analyst. Why don't I just outsource my critical thinking to the nightly news, and then whatever they tell me to think, then that's how I'll think. And that to me is fucking dangerous. That is just crazy. But I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, either they're incapable or unwilling or too pressed for time or whatever, but they just haven't considered the very real possibility that maybe their television nightly news is totally manipulating and lying to them. And I feel like that is just like, that you should have already figured out. And if that's kicking your ass, I'm very nervous about that person.
What's that lack of responsibility, and like, not what better in life than if you could just sit around all life long being like a baby, being taken care of and being swaddled, and you never have to worry someone's going to bring you food, like all this. It's very childlike. People talk about Aleister Crowley saying this is the age of the crowned and conquering child, and I'm like, it's not like he's saying there's going to be a child that rules the world. He's saying it's what we're describing. It's this childlike, we're like infantilized to death, and we just give up all our responsibility and just let people take it for us. It's like, reminds me of when Biden had won, and people were saying like, oh, isn't it great? I don't even know like who our like Secretary of State is. I don't even know like this and that, because I don't even have to worry about it, because we just have Grandpa Joe driving the car and we're just asleep in the back seat. I'm like, you're bragging about this ignorance, and this is the guy who is now walking around like incapable of remembering country names or leaders' names, and who knows what's going on. And all these people are like, well, you should be criticizing his policy. And I'm like, I think we should be worried that the man that's supposed to be leading the free world doesn't even know he's a president, and literally says out loud that he's not allowed to make his own decisions and might get in trouble. That worries me more than anything else. I don't care what his policies are. It's creepy.
But we can go back to brunch. Remember, and decency and brunch. Yeah, thank God. It's embarrassing.
It is.
And I don't expect people to have a PhD in political science. But just at least a baseline understanding of not even so much how politics is supposed to work, like from a mechanical standpoint, but I mean just a baseline understanding of how politics actually works.
Yeah.
That these people that are pretending to hate each other on the right side and the left side, they all are working for the same people.
They're like skipping across dead bodies, arm in arm, just like singing. Yeah.
They're all on the golf course together, when they're out of session. And they're out there with political donors and lobbyists and arms dealers and all these people. And this is their world. And they pretend like they hate each other, and maybe they do to a certain extent, but they all need each other, and they work in a mutually parasitic relationship where they need they need the donors, they need the perception that they hate each other to keep everybody all riled up. It's theater, though. It's all theater. Joe Biden as the president is the best example of political theater I think I've ever seen.
Literally just like a marionette.
And you mentioned, you need to know who's driving the car for the next 4 years. In a literal sense, when he did the photo op in the car, there's another guy in the seat next to him who's actually driving the car. So it was like the universe just hitting you with a lightning bolt, going, this is metaphorically and literally what is happening in this country.
Yeah.
The guy next to him that you can't see is actually driving the car. So who's in charge? I mean, Whitney Webb and I kind of joked on when I had her on my show that we thought Eric Schmidt was running the country.
Which one is he?
He's the former head chairman of Alphabet, of Google's parent company.
Oh, well, he probably is.
He's got a division at the Pentagon. He's running AI for the Pentagon. Okay. And so we kind of like jokingly said he's probably running things.
I think it's probably the AI that he's supposedly running is running him, and then he's running things, right?
But we weren't being totally facetious. I mean, there was some element of truth to what we were kind of joking about, because the tech industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the banks, I mean, they're running things.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be crystal clear about that. Whoever is the president is just the person. He's just the face.
Yeah.
I don't get that feeling when I see people interacting with Vladimir Putin. I get the feeling he's in charge. I might be wrong. And I'm sure he's got plenty of influence from the interested parties, but he seems like a more dominant type of guy. Joe Biden, and not that I believe that the presidents are really running things or anything, but the juxtaposition between somebody like Donald Trump, who walked into a room and just was the centerpiece of everybody's attention, love him or hate him, and
right.
I am no fan of his.
No.
But he had that charisma and that star power and that thing. And Joe Biden is, I mean, the weekend at Bernie's jokes are too on the nose,
Yeah.
but they're most appropriate because he looks like he's practically dead. He if you saw strings attached to his back, you would not be in the least
You're
bit
like,
surprised.
oh, that's why it's so weird.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird time because like you said, that you've got this segment of people that are like, I'm just glad Grandpa Joe is driving. And then there's us, and we're going, well, he's not driving. So who is driving?
Right.
And that's the real question. And it seems like it's a consortium of special interest and favored nations and people like that, arms manufacturing companies. I mean, it's like America. I mean, it's like America has just openly announced it's just an oligarchy, and on its last legs too. It's like everybody is stealing everything they can get their hands on and heading for the exits.
Yeah, it's pretty worrisome, the transitions that are coming through with economically and with everything else going on too. They're like, here's some aliens, here's some pandemic, here's a simulation that is going to come true soon too with the cyber pandemic, and we're already seeing it roll out, right? Like, we've had the meat thing, we've had the gas pipeline thing with the Colonial or whatever, we've had now the American Airlines, or one of the airlines, is going through this again, being cyber attacked or whatever. I'm like, and this hasn't even begun yet, right? Just July 9th, I think, is when they're doing their cyber pandemic.
And what does the World Economic Forum want to do? They want to get you into these smart cities.
Yeah.
They want to remove your ability to eat meat. We had a meat pipeline a cyber attack. They want to reduce your ability to travel and use your carbon footprint. We have a gas pipeline attack. I mean, you can sort of feel the agenda slowly creeping in, and it's like, okay, so we're gonna have cyber attacks. We're gonna simulate cyber attacks. 100% chance we're gonna get cyber attacks.
Yeah. Well, and if this is the warm up, how bad is it really gonna be, right, in the heat of the summer too? But
right.
Yeah.
So now you can just go to Speculation Island and just start thinking, all right, well, what will the cyber attacks be that they pull on us? Well, let's just work backwards. Let's figure out what their agenda is, what they want. And how would you go about doing that? Well, you would demonize this, and you would do this, and they're scared to death of Bitcoin. All right, well, then in this scenario, we'll have the guys use a cyber attack and then ransomware, and we'll use Bitcoin, and then we'll expose how it was like easy for us to track it, and that'll scare a bunch of people off. And then it's like, we'll have the meat one because we were already talking about telling people to eat crickets and cicadas and things like that. Let's just say the meat processing facilities go down for a couple weeks. Let's get them off of meat. So it's like, what else do they want to do? Well, they want self-driving cars. They want universal basic income. They want a digital ID card. They want a social credit system. They want to get you on the internet 2.0 with an internet ID card that tracks biometrically all your stuff. They want everybody vaccinated. They want all the guns removed. So it's like, think of these cyber attacks in terms of how it would benefit this agenda, and you can start to speculate and build sort of an idea of what we could expect. And these are the crazy ass conversations that I had when I go to Acapulco, which is the largest anarchist convention in the world, in Acapulco, Mexico. And I wound up in the bar at the hotel with like a guy like Ole Damagard talking about false flags till 3 o'clock in the morning. And it just made me think, because we would talk about how you would go about doing all these attacks, these fake attacks, and so we just have a pre-announced one with the cyber with the cyber drill that the World Economic Forum is doing. I mean, it's pretty in your face.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. I'm like, they're literally telling you they're going to do this on July 9th. They're already rolling it out. Even the whole Bitcoin thing, I was like, how obvious is this? So they like ransomed it in Bitcoin, and then they got the Bitcoin back from them by taking their servers. I'm like, well, now they're also telling us that our all of our e-coins, all of our crypto coins are also not safe, which, I mean, we kind of know no matter what our currency is, it's not really safe and it's controllable, even if it's decentralized. And so there's that too. And like you said, you can just see all these different agendas sort of coming together in this one massive moment, just in time, right, for Agenda 21 to really be in full effect. Like for the rest of the year, we still have 6 months left in this year to see what happens.
Yeah. Can't wait. Yeah, for all the cyber attacks that are going to just make everything more difficult on the people at a time when we just need them to take the boot off of our throat. But they're not the types to do that without a bit of a fight on our end. And so I feel like there's, for as much of this as we can complain about, and believe me, I do a lot of complaining, I still have to hold the people too a bit responsible for ourselves. Like, we have an obligation to sort of say no to this stuff, to refuse to comply with unjust orders and these things. I mean, I'm just seeing now that they're saying in the UK 4 more weeks of lockdown.
Just don't.
I know it's easy for me to say it from the US to the UK because I'm not having to go through that right now, but you can't allow that. No. You have to open up and say, fuck off. We're not playing this game. We're doing our own thing. They will crumble if everybody does that. Literally. They will. But so it's like, what are we going to get in the second half of 2021? I mean, are we going to get people just lying down and just accepting all this stuff? Or are we poised for the greatest comeback ever, where the people rise up and demand all this stuff be over?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm being too optimistic, but what if, what if this stuff all backfires and the media loses all their credibility and nobody goes there for information anymore? And then they come online, which they can still find the mainstream media, but they discover that there's another batch of facts out there that is not being manipulated like the mainstream media, and they discover the alternative media, and they go, holy shit, what's going on? These people, we didn't know about any of this stuff. And it's like, well, so hopefully 2021 is the tail end of it, is the time where the people figure it out. Where they just they can no longer run the scam anymore, and the people just start to question everything, and wouldn't that be nice? So I don't know. I don't know if I don't know that I would bet that that's going to happen for a huge segment of the population, but it takes, how these things go, it's like, it doesn't seem possible. And then all of a sudden it's just a little spark, and then, and next thing you know, boom. It's a change. So I'm optimistic, but I think I think sort of like the clock is ticking. I feel like we're at this point where it's like we either rise up, or they build this digital prison around us, and we're just trapped in the system with their versions of currency and their universal basic income and their surveillance state and the social credit system and the internet 2.0. Like, if we get in that, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, we're stuck.
Yeah. Well, that's what people are like, oh, this glorious future where we own nothing, but you can have anything, because you'll just say, okay, today I need a car, and I need a house over in this city, and I'm, need a knife to cut my soy protein block and fry it up or whatever, and I'll just get all those things today. It's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but everything that's ever been even slightly like that, you don't get the thing that you need. Actually, you wait in a line for 7 days, and if you ever get it, it's shitty and broken, and I don't know why you think this time it's going to be great and glorious and good. It's not. And like you said, it's going to be, locked in at that point, trapped. There's no coming back. So I'm totally with you. I do think a lot of people wake up more and more, and I do think there's some hope for that. And I think it's a beautiful thing to have a vision for and a focus on, because if we can't even imagine it, then it's definitely not going to happen. But if we can imagine it and hope for it, then it's something that is possible, right? So continuing to go that way is good.
And I think we have to be... we have to keep at least some of that hope and optimism. We also have to have a sense of humor too, because the stuff we've been through this last year. I just was taking notes for this new book, and there were so many insane things that were happening. I was like, this is, if I don't have a footnote citing this, people are going to definitely assume I'm just making it up because
Yeah.
the insanity was so crazy and overwhelming. So it's like I'm on this fine line between like appreciating the serious magnitude of the situation that we're in, and also simultaneously laughing at how preposterous everything has gotten. Um, but I do recognize that, like, if we don't make some changes, I mean, these are not the types of people that ever stop until you stop them. They will keep pushing until we tell them to stop, and or until we make them stop. So, this weird, like, oh, just get along with the program. We'll own nothing, and but we'll be happy, and we'll live in this utopia. It's like, I wasn't around when they were forming the Soviet Union, but I would guess that was probably the same sales pitch they used there.
Yeah, same vision.
And what you got was like shitty gray Soviet style buildings and bread lines and babushkas and shitty weather and Pravda and all this stuff. And I'm not into that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't want that.
That's how you just know it's going to turn out like that. But with, like, times a million, because the surveillance state now is all digital, and these people are going to be running it, the people that are running these smart cities. So, like, this is the recipe for like a dystopian hellscape.
Well, and look at them. Are they eating bugs? No. They're like, oh,
No.
the climate is all messed up, so you guys can't drive cars or have cow farts around, but we're going to each of us fly in a totally separate plane to this place, and then, like, laugh in your face. We're going to pretend to social distance, but then we're all going to hug right as soon as the cameras are turned off, and then we're going to worship this weird techie obelisk. Did you see that weirdness? Like, these people are freaks, and in the background, all their slaves are wearing masks, and none of them are.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck them. Nobody can see this very distinct hypocrisy going on. Like, they're not going to be the ones eating bugs. They're not going to be the ones not owning things and sharing.
No.
No.
That's the part of the sales pitch that they left out.
Yeah.
It's you'll own nothing, but we're going to own all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like there's not going to be ownership of things. We're not saying that we're doing away with the concept of ownership. We're going to own everything.
Yeah.
What we're saying
including
is that,
you. We're going to own you too. So.
especially you. We got an operating system in you in the form of mRNA vaccine.
Yes.
So we're gonna own everything, including you. And when you need to borrow something, I'll tell you what, we'll rent it to you.
We'll think
but
about
we're
it.
gonna own it.
Yeah.
So, including all of the homes.
Yes.
If you've noticed that the private equity's out there buying up homes.
All of them.
And so, I don't think that those. I've been through those cycles where the vulture funds are out there picking up houses. They do that at the bottom of a cycle, not at the top. When you buy them, when you're buying, when you're Goldman Sachs and you're coming in 2011 to Las Vegas, where I worked, you're getting great deals. You're buying after 3 years of declining prices. That's not what's happening. What's happening now is that we're in a overheated, red hot real estate market despite all logic.
Yeah.
When nobody has jobs, and the hedge funds are buying everything they can get their hands on, and they are notoriously good at buying things cheap and selling them high.
Yeah.
So if they're buying them at the high price, it might be because they don't intend to ever sell. And so when you get free money from the Fed, like when you get access to $1 trillion, and you just go hunting for assets, and it almost doesn't even matter what the value is, because the inflation is going to lift all asset prices, and your assets will be protected because you've traded fake dollars in for assets, and then the assets rise as the fake dollars devalue. So, and it doesn't matter because you borrowed them for nothing from your buddies at the Fed. So it's just the ultimate rigged game.
Yeah.
And I think that people should be, like, at the bare minimum, aware of that there's something unusual going on. And in conjunction, Biden changed a law recently that having to do with residential zoning, making it different for. I don't know all the details of it, so I probably shouldn't even say anything. But it had to do with changing zoning away from single family home residential and into multifamily and taking large chunks and doing that with it. That is what you do when you're trying to build smart cities.
Yeah.
You do zoning and you get rid of single family homes altogether. And so these are some things that maybe if you saw them one at a time, it wouldn't mean much. But if you look at it from like maybe a bigger picture of what the World Economic Forum is trying to do, and you say, how would you go about doing it? You're going to start noticing that the things that are happening are fitting very nicely with what these maniacs are trying to have planned for us. So it's stuff to keep your eyes on. You know, it's not like we're going to do, I mean, I'm not going to be able to change Blackstone from BlackRock or
I know I keep mixing those two up, but
from buying all this real estate, but I want to know that they're doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's information for your brain, but it might not be actionable information. It's not like you're going to necessarily do anything except maybe sit on your home and not sell it if you know that these guys are overpaying for things and they're going to continue to. I mean, I don't know that I'd be even a seller right now, and I work in real estate.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I need more people selling their houses, but I think if I was advising them, I would say, don't sell. Sit on it for a while, see what happens.
You can get a lot of money for it right now. I mean, those houses that they're buying up are going for way higher. Some of the houses, I've been looking at houses for like 10 years now because I'm a weirdo and because I was kind of flipping properties for a while and because I just like to look at Zillow. And all these little properties I've been watching for years are just flying off. They're going for, you know, I'll see it, it's like, oh, it's 35,000 out in the middle of nowhere, you know, like maybe I could buy it. And I just look at it for a minute. I come back 2 days later, it sold for 65. I'm like, wait, what? That's not normal. Like, yeah. And I've heard even more, you know, 100,000 over and all these crazy things. So like you said, they wouldn't be doing that unless there's a good reason. And that smart city that can, you know, pushing everyone into their little cages of the cities and not being able to live out in the rural areas is definitely part of that whole agenda 21 world and the Great Reset, which, like you said, if you're like lining these things up, starting with, you know, COVID and all this stuff, or maybe even before, and like just roll through 2020 and 2021 and just watch them all, every single thing goes perfectly in line with that agenda. It's way too perfect. Too many coincidences for me to think that any of this is accidental, or at least, you know, made to happen or allowed to happen, or I don't know, but it never happens in a way that benefits us, does it? It always happens in a way that benefits them. Oops.
Funny that way.
Oops, we're still rich and in control. Sorry.
You guys, oh, look, we crashed the economy and look how much money we lost, but we get to borrow money from the Fed for nothing, and then we just maybe pay it back or maybe don't. Doesn't matter. They created it from their magic computer screen, and so you know, we're still good, and you guys can work for maybe $15 an hour if we're nice enough to do that for you all.
But your rent and your food and your gas and your wood and your everything else will be like 6 times more. So $15 an hour will be nothing anyways.
Exactly.
Well, what do you want to share with people? You did mention this book. When is that coming out? What's going on with that? And where can people find you? And what do you have that you want to maybe let them know about?
The book is, I'm just finishing it up right now. It's just about our culture and what we're seeing, that just the massive amounts of double standards and things like that. And it'll be out in probably the next 2 months or so.
Cool.
You can find my work at the Octopus of Global Control.com. You can find my podcast Macroagressions in audio format pretty much wherever podcasts are served, and also in video format on Rockfin and YouTube and Odyssey and David Icke's video platform called Iconic.
Cool. Yeah, I need to check in with Odyssey. It's like one of the ones that I've never touched yet, but I hear good things about it. Yeah. Well,
they're cool, and I had Jeremy Kaufman, the CEO, on my show because they're like libertarian guys, and I met him in Edinburgh, Acapulco. He was doing a presentation there about it. It's a video sharing platform that's kind of like a YouTube, but it pays you like cryptocurrencies for watching and things like that, and it's just it doesn't track you and doesn't do all this crazy stuff. So they're super into privacy. It's been good, and I like Jeremy a whole lot. So, and it's easy. If you have a YouTube channel, you just get an Odyssey channel, and then there's a button that says, do you want to import everything from YouTube over here? And you're like, yes. And then it's like, we'll send you an email in 4 days when it's done.
Oh, you just convinced
me. And so you're
me.
like, oh, that's super easy. I don't have to manage this transferal process. So it just is I don't know, it's a platform that I like the way it works, and I like philosophically the way Jeremy and the guys think about things. So I'm happy to support that in any way I can.
Oh, I love it. And yeah, that's great. And if people who are watching can also be hooked into that cryptocurrency, creation system, then that's really cool too, because we all win when we all win. Awesome. I love it. Well, Charlie, it's always so fun to talk with you, and I'm so glad we got to do this tonight. And what are your final thoughts that you might want to share with people before we sign off?
Well, it seems like the idiots are running the planet, which is more than likely true. But it doesn't mean that it always has to stay that way. So I feel that maybe after all that we've gone through, it would be such a sweet justice if these maniacs overplayed their hand over the last year and a half in a way that only psychopaths do, their idea that they're infallible and all this, and it backfires and humanity kind of wakes up to it all and makes some major changes. I don't expect us to fix it all, but just the recognition that, or the realization that these people have been in control for a long, long time, and that they are not worthy of our trust and respect and admiration, and that your mainstream media is constantly and totally lying to you because it was designed specifically for that purpose. And that we all need to take some responsibility for our own education and our understanding of this, because if you leave it up to these people to tell you how to think or what to think, you're going to have a life that is very managed, and I feel that that's incongruent with how we're supposed to be. And so I just hope that as many people as possible feel the same way, and that we just remove our attention from this corrupt system and do things differently. And if we can do that, then there's amazing things. We live on this beautiful, weird planet, and there's so many cool things that we can do if we're not constantly fighting these maniacs for control of reality. And so it's a fascinating time to be alive. I guess I'll leave it with that, because that's so ambiguous, because it's both terrifying and beautiful all at once.
Oh, agreed. It's such a beautiful vision and a really good reminder, too. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to the macro-aggressive Charlie Robinson. Charlie, thank you so much for coming on Rogue Ways tonight. It's excellent to catch up with you.
Thanks for having me back.
Awesome. While traveling through the pathways set out before us, we float along for a few years, getting used to the water temps. We find we ride along greased tracks, down wetted tubes, starting to fly a bit too quickly through the scenery around us. Maybe it's fun? We see others laughing and slurping their orange mocha frappuccinos along the water slide and beautiful sky and land we pass by, but the people around us are pissing in the pool. And by the time we see it, we realize we can't get out of our tube and climb the walls because they've become taller. And soon the walls are entirely enclosed and we can't even see the sky or surroundings any longer as we begin to hear the screams from those ahead of us and begin to shoot at laser speeds down darkened, sloshing freefall. This ride isn't meant to be fun. It's meant to carry you from birth to death along a pre-planned route of absolute disconnection. If you were lucky enough to notice the piss pool before the death trap enclosed around you and climbed out before the walls were too high, bring a sledgehammer and break holes for those inside the chute to climb out. Then go enjoy firm ground and open skies, even when it rains or thunders or when the wind blows cold. Freedom supersedes comfort, walking supersedes free floats, and living firmly in the moment supersedes flying through the darkness too quick to think through. And until you dismantle the madhouse, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Domestic terrorists.
They're not wearing masks.
Domestic terrorists. It's that basic, it's that simple.
And the question is, how are we going to really almost deprogram these people?
These extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians.
They're not wearing masks.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories. Oversensitize them to what we have to do.
Potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
We've made it our mission to limit the spread of this disease and to limit the risks to lives and to our economy. We've been clear from the beginning that getting together in groups outside of your household that is not permitted is not allowed.
And we need to make it clear to them that the vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And the window to do that is really narrowing.
This nation, this idea called America, was and always will be a new world. Our new world.
Today we're taking steps to confront not just the gun crisis, but what is actually a public health crisis.
They're not wearing masks.
You know the old expression about snitches? Well, in this case, snitches get rewards. We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work? I am.